Hey everybody, Tony D and little Joan in the background with a hot take on trash cans. San Francisco. I love talking about San Francisco for a lot of reasons, mostly because I really wanted to live there at one point. And now I couldn't think of a place I would want to live less, possibly other than North Korea. So let's get into it. Smash like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Please check out my books. Links in the description. Support the channel. Support Little Joan. Purchase a book. Wokistan, a novel. Hollywoke, another novel. Political satire, kind of about the stuff that's probably going on in San Francisco. And of course, the Pineys, books 1 through 6. Comedy horror in South Jersey. Book 7. I know I keep saying it's going to drop this month. We've had a bit of a snafu. It should come out towards the end of the month. Might be a few days in August, but it's almost there. All available on Kindle Unlimited as well. If you have that, it's free to read. $20,000 trash cans. San Francisco looks to roll out costly prototypes for pilot on street corners. This is how effed up San Francisco is. This is how effed up it is. They can't even figure out how to pick up trash. Okay, they've got tens of thousands of homeless people on the street. They're pooping on the street. They're taking drugs. They now can steal whatever they want under $950. It's chaos. And now the city, in its infinite wisdom, is trying to buy these $20,000 trash cans, which I guess are solar powered and probably compact the trash. I've seen these in other major cities. This is the last thing the city needs. They spend far too much money poorly. Very, very poorly they spend. The poop patrol that collects the poop in San Francisco from homeless people, rather than building, say, porta potties and emptying them, which would at least be cost efficient, cost the city hundreds of thousands of dollars because of the way they pay people. It's a city job, so it's union, it gets all kinds of benefits. Plus you're picking up human feces, so that's a horrible job. I can't think of a worse job, but to handle all that stuff, you're going to need all sorts of hazmat, bio cleanup stuff, and that's expensive. And then it just happens every day, so what are you doing? What are you doing? What you need to do is build some damn bathrooms for these people, which would cost far less than the hundreds of thousands of dollars you're spending on people following homeless guys around when they poop. And are you going to get them all? No, of course not. And the porta potties would be a nightmare too. But a porta potty is a cheap plastic outhouse. Sometimes they get knocked over and they get destroyed or whatever, but they're probably less than $20,000, I'm going to guess, at least in New Jersey, maybe around that. But see, they would last a long time. They would last a while, depending on how you upkept them. Another thing too is I don't understand why Starbucks doesn't just open the doors wide and invite all the homeless people in to poop in their bathroom. They have bathrooms which they've announced pretty publicly that anybody can use them regardless of race, creed, color, whether they're a customer. So shouldn't Starbucks, be encouraging the homeless people to poop there? It's no surprise that the regular trash cans, aren't enough for the city as well, because you got to think that some of the homeless people with, some of their brains left are at least going to attempt to poop in the trash can. If you have no other place to go, and you climb up on the trash can and take a dump, at least you can be like, well, at least I went in there. As opposed to going in a, potted plant, which I don't know how many of them are left on the street at this point. You do that for a few days, it's kind of going to fill up. And not only that, probably kill the plant. But this is untenable San Francisco. You're going to have $20,000 trash cans. That's not going to do anything. It's literally going to do nothing. I mean, look at the trash can in this picture. It's got all kinds of garbage around it. I guess they're trying to get people to stop from going into the trash cans and pulling out the recyclables and throwing the excess trash all over the street. These are homeless people. They have all night to break into that $20,000 trash can if they really want to get in there. I saw a crackhead one time in Philadelphia. He was going at that. We had these parking lots. They were mostly unmanned, where you'd have this board. It was about this thick, and you could stick dollar bills in the number that correspond to your parking space. So the idea was, if it was $3 or $4 to park, you'd roll up $1 and stick it through the hole, and it would go into a metal box that, the parking guy would come back in the day and he would take care of it. And this was kind of a parking lot that was in the middle of nowhere. So I had to park there one night for reasons I won't go into, but I had to go back there very late. It was a frightening walk. And I get there, and I'm the only car there. And there's a crackhead trying to break into the strong box. He's got a hacksaw, and he's going at the lock. And he's weak. He's skinny, malnourished crackhead. But he's going at it. He probably eventually got in. I don't know. Fortunately, he didn't bother me. I just got in my car and left. I mean, what was I supposed to do? I guess I could have reported him, but, I just wanted to get the hell out of there. Like most people, you see something like that, you're like, screw this, man. Screw this. I think he stopped anyway when he saw me get into the car. He kind of just put his arm down, walked away, and then probably came back. But my point is, this isn't addressing the problem. What San Francisco needs, and I've always said it, is they need. And look at this space age trash can there. They got a rendering of it that they want to get. It's not going to stop them. They're gonna, you can put this in the ground with cement or whatever. The homeless people are gonna be pushing against this thing until it either falls over or breaks or both. They'll find a weak spot, because every day they'll walk by it and punch it and kick it. Next day they'll come by, punch it and kick it. Next day they come by with a stick and sort of pry into it. And each time they get a little further. They got nothing else to do, man. They're homeless. If anything, it's a fun challenge. Break into the trash can, man. What San Francisco needs is cheap housing. Cheap housing to alleviate the suffering of these people. But they're never going to do that, because they don't want people in their houses. They don't want to hurt their insanely high property values. Once they start putting homeless people, or even middle class people, into cheap houses, the whole neighborhood comes down. It also, too, would change the architecture of the town, which is a big deal in San Francisco. They don't want that. So the rich hippies who still live there fight against this in court, and they argue against, no, it's going to change the tenor of the neighborhood. Meanwhile, your neighborhood's covered in feces. How's that for a tenor? So, these people just get used to all the homeless people, I guess, and just keep walking around them, keep donating to various charities that can't really get on top of the problem. And people keep coming. They keep coming. They keep getting drugs. It would be different if heroin was legal, okay? Because if heroin was legal, you could legalize it in such a way that these people would either leave the city, because you could legalize it on the outside of the city, like they did with prostitution in Nevada, right? It would drive all the addicts to the outskirts. You could say, you can take all the heroin you want out in the desert. There are places. And then you can go out there, and it'd be like, a good time until you ran out of money, and then you're stuck in the desert. Should heroin be legal? The thing is, who would manufacture heroin if it was legal? Because you still could be sued by your customers if something's legal, right? So if I make, I don't know, candy, and the candy's highly addictive, and you start selling yourself as a prostitute just to get the candy, you'll probably, you or your family or both will end up suing me because, hey, your candy's addictive, and then I'll have to pay you out, and hopefully you'll get rehab or whatever. That's what would happen if you legalized the drugs. Yeah, and heroin would still be harder to get, but quite frankly, the cost would plummet to the point, it wouldn't even be worth pulling out of the ground in Afghanistan, processing and shipping all the way to the United States. I mean, the price would plummet because they'd start growing it in California. And, if you put all the money into rehab, maybe you could make a dent in this, right? If they had massive rehab centers where anybody could go and it was free. Hey, you want to get off the streets? Oh, well, take you to rehab out in the desert. And you just keep putting these people in rehab. You might make a dent in it. Instead, you're spending $20,000 on a trash can. One trash can. And there's hundreds of trash cans, I'm sure, in San Francisco. So what is this going to cost you? They say if they mass produce it, it'll reduce the cost to $2,000 or $3,000. But okay, let's say generous. Let's say 2,000. 10 is 20,000. 100 is 200,000. 1,000 is $2 million. That's a lot to spend on trash cans. And these are they're solar powered. They smash the trash or whatever. Still gonna have to maintain them. You're gonna have to replace them when the homeless people break them and knock them over and steal them or whatever. It's just a dumb idea. You're not addressing the real problem. The real problem is the homeless crisis in your city. You need to give these people a place to live. These are the people who advocate for the homeless nonstop, 24/7, and yet they can't get it together to give them some housing. To take an empty building and say, we're going to buy this and turn it into a homeless shelter or whatever, or a rehab. That's what they really need. They need rehab. I mean, for $20,000, can't you send somebody to rehab? Is it that much? I don't even think it's that much, right? Maybe it's 10 grand. Send somebody to rehab. Send these guys to rehab. Instead of spending all this money on trash cans, spend all the money sending addicts to rehab, I would say. That would provide at least some dividend. At least you'll be helping people. At least they get off, a few of them will get off of drugs and have a good life. And and you should start a program where not only they get rehab, they don't come back to San Francisco. Because obviously it's an unaffordable place to live. Everybody's leaving the city. It's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. The only upside to everybody leaving the city is there'll be so many abandoned buildings. These people will finally have a place to live. But, when junkies live they take over a house, they don't exactly use it correctly. They don't have electricity or running water. So what do they end up doing? First time it gets cold, they light a fire, and they're junkies, so they're not really thinking. They get high, the fire goes out of control, and somebody gets hurt, or the building gets burned. So, San Francisco, man. I'm so glad I don't live there. What an absolute S-hole. You've ruined the city. Nancy Pelosi takes partial blame for this. This is her district that she's oh so proud of. I hope she lives here for the rest of her life. I hope she's there for when the wave of homeless people come to poop on her front lawn. Well, I'm sure the cops there will protect her. I'm sure suddenly she'll be very pro-cop at that moment. But, God, San Francisco.